How's it going? Well, hope you had a superb sporting week. Yep, it's that time of the week again for another installment of your weekly sports podcast, Talking Point, the forum where we engage and debate with our top citizen sports journalists who keep you in the loop every day on our print and online portals. And from time to time, we also welcome some regular guests to the show. But welcome to it. My name's Trevor Kramer. We're slap bang in the middle of a sporting crossover right now. Rugby still very much centre stage as we head into the crunch knockout stage. It's week 6 of the Rugby World Cup in France. Time for the heart rate to rise significantly a little bit again for Springbok supporters. The Boks set to play hosts France this week in the quarterfinals. And the Cricket World Cup, of course, into week 2. And that's happening in India. The 50-over format or ODI Cricket World Cup got underway there last week. That's in India. But it's rugby we're focusing on this week. Joining me in studio this week, a regular on our show. Wealth of sporting knowledge, passion for all things sporting, very much for rugby too. He's the head of Citizen Sport, Jacques van der Westhuizen. Jacques, great to have you as always.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, good to be here again.
Firstly, let's talk generally before we home in on the Springboks, Jacques. The World Cup has pretty much generally not gone against the grain, so to speak. Bar one factor, perhaps. That's for the first time, no Wallabies in the quarters. Your thoughts on that one? Is Eddie Jones the right guy? Did he make a few blunders, a few wrong calls? Or was it just a very young Aussie side that were never really equipped for the job?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the big shock of this World Cup. The Wallabies not making it through to the quarters. It's the first time in their history that, they were knocked out in the pool stage. So many questions around Eddie Jones and the way he selected the squad, the way he, picked the players for the matches that he did, the defeats that they had. So many questions and criticisms, and all fully justified. I mean, the Aussies have underperformed. There's no doubt about that. Eddie has made a number of blunders, and they're paying the cost now. How they're going to resolve it going forward, I don't know, because he's got a long-term contract. But you have to look at guys like Michael Hooper, Quade Cooper missing out. Those are experienced players, and when you get to a World Cup, you certainly don't want to be experimenting or backing the youngsters who haven't been there before. So, he could have done a few things differently, I think, but the Aussies are going to have to deal with it now and look to the future, maybe build with those players and look to 4 years' time. But without doubt, the big shock of the World Cup for me, and like you say, I think everything else sort of more or less went according to plan. Maybe a bit surprising that Wales made it through, maybe, Fiji getting through as well. But those are, the fortune for them and misfortune for the Wallabies. So, but everywhere else, I think, as expected and how we thought it would turn out.
Looking at Les Bleus, the Springboks opponents, France, they're the host nation again, as they were in 2007. Great expectations from the French public, the rugby public. Heightened pressure, no doubt. What do you feel the Boks should keep in mind about French rugby, perhaps, and in particular this new group of French players that have come through?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the French, we've known the French always to blow hot and cold. Historically, that's how they've been. 1 week up, playing champagne rugby, scoring tries from their own try line and going 100 meters. And then the next week, losing by 20, 30 points. So that's what we've become, used to and the norm for French rugby. But over the last couple of years, this team has really changed with Fabien Galti leading them. They're more consistent. They almost play a slightly more conservative style of rugby. They don't chop and change all the time. There's uniformity in how they want to play, and I think the players have bought into that. So it's a team that one really has to be wary of and give respect to, because they're really on top of their game. And with Anton Dupont there, should he be past fit, they're a really solid outfit. There are not too many weaknesses. So, yeah, it's an interesting one for me. They're a side that really looks good in that, but I still feel that they haven't, they're not quite on top of the world, to put it that way. I still think that, the Boks have got a good chance against them this weekend.
What do you make of the Rassie Naba Boks up until now, from what we've seen? Do you feel there's more to come, a few more tricks up the coach's sleeves? For starters, of course, the Boks coach is playing mind games a little bit already by delaying the team announcement for the France game, I see. The French pretty much still non-committal, if we can call it that, as to whether Kingpin Antoine Dupont will play or not. What do you make of those?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think we need to read too much into, the delayed naming of the team or anything like that. I don't think there's anything in it. The only thing I take away from the whole, delaying tactic and naming the side is to keep the French guessing. There are question marks around who's going to play fly half for the Boks. Is it going to be Libbok or Pollard? Who's going to be in the centres? What's the makeup of the bench going to be? Are they going to go 7-1, 6-2, 5-3? And if they announce the team earlier in the week like they've done up to now on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it really gives the French time to rethink a few things possibly before they name their team on a Friday. So, and then they can prepare accordingly. By doing it this way, you're keeping them guessing, and they don't have much time then to adapt or adjust if they want to do so with just 2 days to the test match. I think that's all that there is to it. I think the players and the coaches in the Springboks setup probably knew on Saturday, Sunday already last week, who was going to be starting, who was going to be on the bench. I don't think it has anything to do with what the French are going to do either. I think the Bok team is already, it's set whether Dupont plays in the starting team or off the bench or not at all. I don't think it'll make any difference whatsoever to the way the teams line up on the weekend.
Before we broaden our scope a bit and look at the 4 quarterfinals, what do you feel, Jacques, are the key battleground areas that'll tip this one?
Yeah, I mean, all over the park. I mean, it's well, it goes without saying, the set pieces are going to be crucial. Defense is going to be crucial. These are just, all the elements of rugby and what makes, certain teams stronger than others. You need to be good in all aspects. For me, again, as in all rugby, it's going to come down to which team takes their opportunities when they're given to them. We've seen the Boks create a number of chances, but not finish off over the course of this World Cup. So, you want to see them actually get into the opposition 22, set up the scrum or the line out and actually score a try from there. And that's going to be the key thing, I think, in this, is taking your chances. When you get into that red zone, you need to strike. And then the other important thing for me is obviously going to be the goal kicking. So difficult to separate these teams. All 4 of the quarterfinals are going to be close affairs, tight affairs, with not much between the teams. So I think, goal kicking is going to be crucial. And again, it raises the question again, are the Boks going to go with the Pollard or they're going to go with the Libbok? Both, can kick superbly well on the day, but Libbok has had his issues at this World Cup. So goal kicking is going to be key. And then another thing for me, we saw it with England in one of the opening games. We saw Ford slotting drop kicks, from way out. We haven't seen any other team really do that. Could we get to the quarterfinals now this weekend and all of a sudden one of the teams decides, this is drop goal time? And that could, play a significant role as well in a tight game.
Head on the block, never easy. How do you see the 4 quarterfinals going? Always difficult to remain neutral, of course, when it comes to the Springboks, one feels. Do Fiji have what it takes to upset England? Does Michael Cheika's Argentina have the goods to derail Warren Gatlin's Wales? Then the big one, New Zealand versus Ireland, a dominant force in world rugby for many years now, the All Blacks, facing the world's current number 1 side, Ireland. Any predictions from your side? I know it's difficult.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like I said, I think all 4 of them are very tight affairs. I mean, obviously the big name teams, are the 4 top-ranked teams in the world, and they're all playing against each other. But the 2 other quarterfinals are equally close and tight, and it's very difficult to actually call a winner there. Fiji have got through, and they beat England last year for the first time. They take them on again at the World Cup a couple of months later, and I think they've got a chance. I really do think they've got a chance. But I think England are just finding some sort of form at the moment, and I think England will potentially prove too strong over 80 minutes. Wales then, they're involved with Argentina. That's a very difficult one to call because, for me, Wales are actually one of the surprise packages here. They haven't had a tough draw up to now, and this is really their first real test. And I don't know. I mean, Wales have had so many problems in the last year or 2 or 3. Are they really good enough to play in a World Cup semi-final? That's where they'll be if they win this weekend. I think Argentina should pip them over the 80 minutes, and then the 2 big ones. Ireland and New Zealand. What a match! It's so difficult to call that one, but For me, again, I think New Zealand have been up and down over the last 2-3 years. Not quite up there like, they have been in the past. Just missing some sort of grunt up front maybe, missing something at the back. And I think a team like Ireland, who are really on top of the game at the moment, should pip them. They've got very few weaknesses. So I think Ireland for me, and then, as you say, very difficult to not go with the Boks against France. I do think the Boks team is a better team than the French team, man for man. So I'm going with the Boks to beat France, and then, it's down to the semi-finals. And, what a weekend awaits us.
Indeed, there we have it, a phenomenal weekend of World Cup knockout rugby ahead of us. I'm sure the watering holes and the locals will be packed to the brim. Kitchens, water coolers, talk at the office will be heightened. And if you're going to be at home, well, take my advice, take charge of that remote control. Before we put a lid on another instalment of Talking Point, though, don't go anywhere, Jacques. It's our weekly Flop and Gold Star feature where we hail sporting excellence and bash mediocrity. My flop of the week, well, I think it wasn't difficult again, and it has been a flop for quite a number of weeks now, unfortunately. That goes again to the Australian rugby team, ousted for the very first time from the Rugby World Cup in the pool stages. So Eddie Jones's future very much up in the air. The future of Australian rugby, how Australian rugby is going to be managed in the future. We did touch on it during our debate a little bit earlier about the Australian dismissal from the World Cup. So my flop of the week, it goes to Australian rugby. And like I've said before, we'll miss you, Eddie Jones. My gold star, well, that goes to the Fiji rugby team. They've defied the odds. They've gate-crashed the World Cup quarterfinal party. Despite a stumble in their final pool match against Portugal, they took Wales close. They beat Australia and Georgia, and 2 losing bonus points proved enough to advance to the World Cup quarterfinals. So well done there to Fiji when you consider the resources and what is thrown at teams that are competing in this World Cup, particularly the Tier 1 teams. It's remarkable what Fiji have actually accomplished during the course of this World Cup. Jacques, how are you looking?
Yeah, Trevor, I'm going to just follow on with that first. My gold star this week goes to Portugal, in fact. I agree with you. Fiji have been fantastic, but I think Portugal were, they won that last game, and that it was their World Cup final for them. They've had a tough time. The second-tier nations have really struggled at this World Cup. I think we expected a bit more from teams like Georgia, maybe Romania, even Namibia. And Portugal were the one team that really, struck gold towards the end and that. And it's up to World Rugby now to really help these second-tier nations, and they can't really only, concentrate every 4 years at a World Cup. They really need to find development, and they need World Rugby to get behind them in between the World Cups. But well done to Portugal for that. And then my flop of the week is, moving away from rugby, looking at the crowds in India where the Cricket World Cup is happening. Some of the crowds have been really good, but some of them have been also very, very poor. I think this is really, just a sign of the times and of maybe things to come in future. One's got to wonder about the 50-over game. Does it have a place in world cricket, 10, 20 years from now? I don't know. It's still great to watch, but I think the world is maybe seeing that T20 cricket is the best and the only format and the shortest format going forward.
That's where we'll wrap it. Have a great sporting week with the Citizen as your companion as usual, both online and in print. Jacques van der Westhuizen, the head of Citizen Sport, thanks for joining us and sharing your wealth of sporting knowledge with us once again. Also, I'll start again. 3, 2, 1. Jacques van der Westhuizen, the head of Citizen Sport, thanks for joining us too and sharing your wealth of sporting knowledge with us. My name's Trevor Kramer. This has been Talking Point. You'll find us on citizen.co.za. Click on Multimedia. The subsection is Podcasts, or why not follow Citizen News on Iono FM. You'll also find the video podcast on the Citizen YouTube account. Go check it out and subscribe. Remember this, an old saying, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. Have yourself a great sporting week. Cheers for now.